Oh, hi. It's me, Jeremy. And I know you didn't want another episode of Cup Full of Metal, but I felt that I needed to give you just one more. I may give you more in the future. I don't know. But this is my last Cup Full of Metal while I'm on active duty. So I've been on active duty in the Army for over 20 years. I started my active federal service on 9 January 2000. Some of you weren't even born yet. Some of you were still getting your diapers changed. And I still get that done if I pay enough up front. So, let's talk about that. After 20 years of being on active duty, I've come to know a lot of new bands, at least for me. Now, these are bands now, looking back, that have become such a huge part of my life, of my repertoire, that have been parts of my deployments that I know I wouldn't have made it through some of the hard times without these bands. But the first time that I heard them, it was almost earth-shattering, or maybe the first time I realized them. I'd heard one of them and heard one of their songs, but then didn't realize just how good they were until a friend of mine was giving me a ride in his Avenger in Germany. That was an Intrepid, yeah. So that's what I'm here to talk about, to thank some of the people along the way who introduced me to some cool music that I now love, that makes up so much of the listening I do when I'm riding in my truck back and forth to beautiful Fort Riley that's a half an hour away. Or some of the stuff that I jam out to when I'm just by myself. I've made some really cool friends while I've been in the Army, and I've listened to some really good music. I've seen some really cool shows, some of them with my wife, and who I thank her for, but she'll never hear it because she doesn't watch these videos, which is smart on her part. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about some of the music that has helped me through my over 20 years in the United States Army. And hopefully you'll like some of these bands, or they'll bring back memories. And if you're one of the people that have listened to this type of music with me before, or introduced me to this band, then thank you. And I will thank you personally. So here we go for the last time while I'm on active duty, because I start my last week on active duty tomorrow. Here we are with another Cup Full of Metal. Okay, so let me start by saying I went to basic training on January 9th, 2000. That was a long time ago, right? Like I said, some of you weren't conceived yet. Some of you were crawling around, wiping snot out of your nose and having your mom pick up after you or your dad, whoever. But you get enough of those references from old people like me. I'm going to say is it's been a long time. And when I went to basic training, I was a Metallica person. Always have been. That was my tribe. I have always been a Metallica person. In fact, I went and saw Metallica up in Pontiac Silverdome up in Detroit, in Pontiac, Michigan. It's right outside Detroit. I saw them on New Year's Eve 1999 when the whole Y2K thing was supposed to happen. I saw it was Metallica, Sevendust, Ted Nugent, and Kid Rock. It was a great concert. And then after I got out of there, 9 days later, I was on a plane to go to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, to be a combat engineer, 12 Bravo, back in the day. But so I was a Metallica person. But when I went to basic training, I thought, I'm going to give up heavy metal. No, seriously, sit down. It's okay. Don't. I hope that didn't throw you for a loop. But I was going to give up heavy metal and hard rock. I thought I was going to listen to country because I thought that was going to make me a more wholesome person. But crazily enough, when I was in basic training, way back in the day, a kid, or a guy who's probably an old man now, his name was Mott, M-O-T-T, was singing Harvester of Sorrows by Metallica. Now, if you've never heard Harvester of Sorrows, it's off their last really great album, which was Injustice for All. I mean, they've had some good albums since, but that was the end of the primordial thrash era for them, when they were the kings of the heap. And then I went over and sang it with him. And then from that moment on, I realized that heavy metal was just my tribe. I felt like I fit in. It made me feel cool. I'm not cool. I never have been cool. But that made me feel cool. And so I went back into the world of heavy metal. I've loved it ever since. I've never given it up. I've never had a relapse moment where I thought this isn't for me. It's the best music out there. I love all kinds of music except for new country. But even some of that, like Chris Stapleton's pretty good. But I digress. So I got out of basic training and then went to my first Fort Carson, was my first duty station. From there, I didn't discover much new. It was the era of dominated by nu metal. If you don't know who nu metal is or what nu metal is, that's Limp Bizkit, That's your bands like that, Slipknot, those kinds of bands. Well, when I went to Germany in 2001, December 2001, I made a friend named Christopher Westbrook. Now, anyone who's on here who's watching this knows who Christopher Westbrook is. He's kind of a space cadet kind of guy, but he was a good guy. And I got into his Dodge Intrepid one day, and he gave me a ride from the motor pool, 40th Engineers in Baumholder, Germany, up to the barracks. And there was this song that I'd never heard before. Who is this? And he said, "Oh, that's System of a Down." I was like, I heard their one song, Peephole, but it never caught me. But System of a Down, it was the prison song, and it was off of Toxicity. Well, this was back in the day when there was no online sharing or playing of MP3s, at least on that were not on a disc. So he burned a copy of Toxicity for me, and it changed my life. I can tell you that from that point on, I have been a System of a Down fan. And anyone who's ever been to Germany and been on rotations through Graf and Veer and Hohenfels, specifically Hohenfels, a lot of times you have nothing to do. And I had my CD player, and I was a Hemet driver for Charlie Company 4th Engineers out of Baumholder. And if you could wear out a CD, I would have worn out my copy of Toxicity. It changed my life. And I owe that all to Christopher Westbrook. And I can't find him on social media. So if you see him, anyone out there knows who he is, and you guys are connected to him, tell him I said hello and send him my way on Facebook. But I'm grateful for him because he introduced me to, or helped me realize just how great System of a Down is. They're one of my favorite bands. I love what they do. I hope that they tour again. I hope they have another album. But if they don't, I am grateful for what they were to me. Toxicity is one of the single best albums I think ever made. I can listen to it from start to finish and not want to skip a song. That's number one. All right. So it was right before I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. It was spring of 2010. And a friend of mine, a soldier who was in the platoon that I was in, I was an E5 sergeant, and a kid named PFC Landrino, Blake Landrino, who again I can't find on social media. Him and I would always talk about different kinds of music, heavy metal. He was this kind of nerdy, laid-back guy, but he was into the heaviest stuff in the world. And actually, he had given me a copy of the Black Dahlia Murder, one of their albums. I don't remember because I don't care for them. And one of some of the lyrics talked about building a temple out of skin. So from then on, my wife, Janelle, referred to him as Skin Temple. And so Skin Temple one day said, "Here, I want you to listen to this." And he handed me a copy of Ashes of the Wake by Lamb of God. Again, it's another one of those earth-shattering, groundbreaking moments where the gods of metal, if I believed in gods, came through and touched my soul, if I believe in a soul. They did. They reached out and touched me, and I felt it. And from the moment I heard Laid to Rest, all the way through to my favorite song, which is The Faded Line. That whole album I can listen to all the way through. And I have now seen Lamb of God twice in concert. Not 3 times, sorry. Twice in concert. Opening up for Slayer, by the way. And they're awesome. They keep getting better. They're still making music now. I plan to go see them if they come anywhere close to Nashville when I get there and get back in a couple weeks. Lamb of God is my tribe. They are my favorite heavy metal band. I love Lamb of God. If I'm having a bad day, if I'm anything, I listen to Lamb of God. And I am forever indebted to Blake Landrino, who ended up getting out of the Army early, for introducing me to that band. I'm grateful. When I went to SLC, Senior Leaders Course, up in Fort Lee, Virginia, which is just south of Richmond, I drove to Richmond on a quest to see if I can find Lamb of God. I knew I wasn't going to, but it was just a neat idea. I never found them, by the way. But I love that band. That band is very special to me. The band, I listened to them so much when I was in Afghanistan. And I wouldn't have made it through so many of the hard times in my life without Lamb of God. And so, Blake Landrino, if you're anywhere and you ever hear this, know that I'm grateful to you and I'd like to reconnect. But thank you to Lamb of God. Okay, so in the new wave of American heavy metal, which was what Lamb of God is classified as, the last group I mentioned, is this next band. They're called Chimera. And Chimera is from Cleveland, Ohio, which now, if you're from Ohio like I am, I'm from Cincinnati. And we all know that when you flush the toilet in Cincinnati, the shit flows up to Cleveland. But another great band from there is Mushroomhead. But they're not on my list. I've discovered them too during the Army, but they're not on my list. Chimera is a really great band. The Illusion of... I forget the name of the album. I should have wrote it down. But it's the album that's white and it's got a red drawing on it. That's their best album. And this best song is Power Trip. And they're a great band. If you've never heard Chimera, I recommend listening to them. They're really, really good. They're not as good as Lamb of God is for me, but they're a close second. I love listening to them. I try to go to listen to as much of their stuff as I can online to give them listens to help them hopefully make some more money through streaming services. But Chimera is a different kind of unstructured version of Lamb of God. I recommend listening to them, and they're a band that I discovered while I've been in the Army. All right, this next band, Cannibal Corpse. So, many of you, some of you, are probably too young to remember when former Senator Bob Dole, who was from here in Kansas, by the way, was running for president. I think he was running against Bill Clinton, right? And he was running, and they had this whole push to have purity and great stuff in music to get rid of all the bad stuff. Well, they came out with this list, and I don't remember what the number was, but they were the filthy bands. Body Count, which is Ice-T's band, was on there. And if you don't like Body Count, they're a really great band. But Cannibal Corpse is one of them that was on there. And Cannibal Corpse gained so much popularity because of being listed that all it did is boost their sales. They were in interviews, they talk about how great it was that Bob Dole mentioned them to give them some press. Now, most of you have seen Cannibal Corpse and you don't realize it. So if you've ever seen Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, the band that's playing in the club, when he walks in and goes, "Hello, is Greg here?" Alrighty then. That's Cannibal Corpse on stage, playing their timeless classic, Hammer Smash Face. Now, Cannibal Corpse has had two lead singers. They first had Chris Barnes, who's got that growl, and now they've got George Corpse Grinder, right? Corpse Grinder's great. I love Corpse Grinder. He's one of my favorite singers. As far as death metal goes, he's awesome. This dude's a trip. But Cannibal Corpse, I discovered Cannibal Corpse while I was in Korea. So Korea, if you ever go there, doesn't stop you from streaming torrents. You can download as much as you want. It's not against the law. I downloaded so much stuff it wasn't even fun. I had over a terabyte drive full of shows when I came back from Korea. Music, shows, games, everything, you name it. They even let you download. Well, if you could sneak it, you could get porn, but porn's against the law in Korea. So I discovered Cannibal Corpse. I was trying to come up with bands that I wanted to download, and I found Cannibal Corpse. And they kind of touched me. And to this day, I'm a Cannibal Corpse fan. They just had a new album released this year. They're old, but they're awesome. They are still relevant in the death metal genre, and they're one of the first bands that most people know when they come to death metal. I love Cannibal Corpse. If I get a chance to see them in concert, I'm going to go see them. I think my favorite song by them is Killer Become, because he says, "Fire up the chainsaw, cut their fucking heads off. If you want to live, you have to kill or become." And he's talking about zombies. So listen to some Cannibal Corpse, man. You cannot go wrong with Cannibal Corpse. Unless you're on acid, then that stuff might fuck you up. Don't do it. But Cannibal Corpse, I'm telling you, I've actually got a sticker on the back of my truck now that says Cannibal Corpse on it. So give them a listen. I love them, and I'm usually not wrong. Just don't ask my wife. All right, I'm back. I had to take a couple of hours to deal with some things in life, talk to the wife, take care of some other stuff. Well, I got to start off this last section talking about one of the best lieutenants I've ever met in the Army. His name is Alex Strenagel. I'm hoping he's going to watch this. This should be put up on Facebook, so he'll see it. But he's a great lieutenant. He's a great guy. He's out of the Army now. He got hurt through no fault of his own when we were doing a movement. 3rd Brigade was Rakasans. Yay, rah. We was doing a movement up to Fort Knox, and he ended up getting, I think, hit by a civilian car. So he ended up getting chaptered out of the Army. And by the way, 3rd Brigade got kicked out of Fort Knox on that rotation. That was a special trip. But I digress. So when Lieutenant Stranegal Alex got to, he was at the in-processing in-briefing at 626 BSB. I was standing in the back, and I heard him say, when he introduced himself, "I'm a metalhead." And I thought, all right, this guy's cool. So I went up to him, we talked about the different types of metal that we liked, and he'd mentioned he liked sludge metal, and I don't know if he mentioned it then, but I remember I found High on Fire, and we talked about High on Fire later, and he said, yeah, that's his band. And then, well, after he got hurt, he called me and says, hey, you want to go to a concert? So I gave him a ride, and he had tickets to go see a band called Electric Wizard. I'd never heard of Electric Wizard before, but Lieutenant Stranegal, or Alex, is a cool guy. He liked him. I was going to go see him. And he actually gave me a ticket, which was really awesome. And we went down there, and it was his birthday. And the band called Oryx opened up for them. Oryx is a great band. They're out of Denver. And you don't see too many female drummers in heavy metal bands. And the female drummer in this band was better than a lot of the male drummers, that dominate the scene. And so she was really awesome. But Electric Wizard, they come up there and blew the doors off. It was such a great show. And I have come to really love Electric Wizard. I listen to them quite a bit. If you don't know who they are, they're kind of like a stoner doom metal. Maybe a little bit of sludge mixed in there, but they're very talented. They're out of England, and they don't tour very often. And I got to go see them live in concert. I was pretty excited about that. And that's another band that I have discovered while I've been in the Army. So I'm grateful to him. Alex is still my friend on Facebook. I hope he sees this and realizes that I am grateful to him for bringing that music to my life. And as a Christmas present, he bought me 3 CDs. This guy who, we didn't know each other super well, but we'd had a connection because we'd gone to a concert. He bonded with me over music. And music has a tendency, can bring people together, and especially heavy metal. When you see someone that's in your tribe, you tend to grab them and make them your own, okay? So that's the last band I'm going to talk about. All right, so I've come to the end of my last cupful of metal while I'm still on active duty in the Army. I am very grateful to all of my friends out there who I've bonded with music, who I have, come to know in the Army. Music is a good, approachable subject that helps bring people together. And from the beginning to the end, there's a soundtrack to my military service. And I think the highlight for me goes back to when I was in Afghanistan and I was riding around with Corey Cunningham and Patrick Reedy. We were the crew of my truck, EZ-35. And we were the front gun truck, and we had the mine roller out front. And we had it rigged up, which you're not supposed to do, but anyone who's been in the deployment knows that you rig it up so that you can play your MP3 player through the intercom system, and you can listen on the headsets. And I had a Zune, which had an enormous amount of space and would play any format. And we had music all the time in the background. And Corey had never heard Pantera, Vocal Display Power, the whole album before, and it just blew him away. And every time we would get back to the Arghandab River, anyone who's been to Afghanistan, especially down in I forget the province we were in, the Kandahar province, the Arghandab River was like the last fallback for the Taliban. That's kind of where they're from, is the Arghandab River province. And so every time we would hit the Arghandab River, we would turn on Limp Bizkit's Hot Dog Flavor Water and Chocolate Starfish, and we would start playing it. In the first song on that album, he says fuck a bunch of times, and he says there's 36 fucks in this fucked up rhyme, and we would try to count them, and every time we would get lost and never find it. And we would listen to that album, and it was a little bit of that new metal stuff. And I will always be grateful for those memories and for all the friends that I've had, all the people I've served with. Whether I've served with you for a week or whether I've known you for years. Thank you for, number one, for serving. Thank you for 2, sharing music with me. And thank you for just getting to know me. This is the last time Sergeant First Class West is going to say goodbye. And maybe I'll make another one of these down the road. Maybe I won't. You never know. But thank you for watching. And keep your cup full of metal.